Démarrer. Le live est démarré, c'est formidable. Donc merci également aux personnes qui nous suivent à distance. On va donc pouvoir démarrer ce cycle de conférences du jeudi du premier Innov'camp de l'ETNA avec du coup une intervention donc d'une représentante de l'entreprise Ubiome.
Hello, my name's Kathryn. I'm the Director of Operations.
Puis donc la partie Q&A qui se fera à travers un Skype. Voilà.
Over the next few minutes, I would like to introduce you to your microbiome, the trillions of microbes that live in and on your body. Your microbiome is already familiar with you and knows pretty much everything there is to know about you. It's keenly aware of your dietary choices, where you live, where you work, whether you really did keep those New Year's resolutions. It's not just a passive presence though. Your microbiome has been subtly reacting to and possibly even influencing your lifestyle choices since the day you were born. And I do mean the moment you were born. We'll talk a little bit more about babies' microbiomes later. So how big and how influential is your microbiome? The human body is made up of trillions of cells. Current estimates say that we have 10 times as many microbial cells as human cells. Now, here at Ubiome, we've spent quite a lot of time speaking with people about their microbiome. And when we first start talking about the amount of bacteria on the human body, people have a tendency to recoil in horror. Thanks in part to commercials for antibacterial hand wash, or in fact any ads aimed at the anxious parents of young children, typical associations are that bacteria are dirty or bad. But not all bacteria are pathogenic. Let's take a moment to look at the gastrointestinal tract in more detail. The large intestine is the microbiome megalopolis, with the densest gathering of microbes in the entire body. Usually there are around 200 prevalent species and up to 1,000 less common ones. As food moves through the stomach and small intestine, our own cells do their best to break it down and pass nutrients through the bloodstream, but much is left undigested by the time it reaches the colon. There, we depend upon microbes to break up starches and other tough molecules. They also dismantle some of the toxins in our food and build essential vitamins. These bacteria are collaborating with our bodies. Your microbiome is an ecosystem, and like any ecosystem, it needs to be kept in balance to flourish. Here at Ubiome, we offer microbiome testing for essentially anything, but our core focus is 5 human sampling sites: gut, skin, nose, mouth, and genitals. If you think of the body as different ecological environments, the forearm is a dry desert compared to the rainforest of the armpit. While moist regions create more types of bacteria, the armpit species differ greatly from the ones teeming on your forearm. Similarly, the bacteria that flourish at different locations will perform very different functions. While the bacteria in your gut focus on breakdown of food, the bacteria in your oral microbiome might focus more on preventing cavities. So let's take a look at the consequences for the microbiome in health. Over the past 5 to 10 years, there has been overwhelming scientific evidence that the human microbiome has profound consequences for our health. It's implicated in a wide range of health conditions, from obesity, diabetes and IBD, to heart health, anxiety, and depression. Even infant health appears to benefit from a proper introduction of microbes, and a person's microbiome at birth seems to have health consequences across their lifetime. Babies in the womb have no microbiome. Studies show that babies born by cesarean section are more likely to suffer from allergies, eczema, and asthma later in life, because they don't have that same contact with their mother's vaginal microbiome during the birthing process. So, what is Ubiome and how can we help you understand your microbiome? Ubiome is a crowd-science microbiome sequencing company. This means we give citizen scientists and organizations access to cutting-edge sequencing technology they might not otherwise have access to. As participants in our research study, you can get your own results and be part of cutting-edge scientific research. So, why is having more people studying the microbiome so important now? More than 1.4 billion adults worldwide are overweight, with more than 500 million clinically obese. Over the past 2 decades, there has been a marked rise in allergies, autoimmune and neurological disorders. Autoimmune disorders now affect 23 million Americans alone. Asthma in westernized societies has risen steadily, doubling in the last 20 years. If we can help bring more attention to the role of the microbiome in these disorders, we might be able to do something about them. Let's talk a little bit about how Ubiome is changing the way science is done. Currently, scientific questions are the sole domain of professional scientists. Scientific research is poorly understood by the general public. To play a direct role in any kind of research or inquiry requires significant training, and with that the financial backing to do so. Ubiome is changing the way science is done. We're empowering individuals to see their own data and ask their own questions. This will allow people to take control over their own information and make them the focus of development in medicine and technology, as opposed to the comparably small number of scientists employed by larger organizations. The vast majority of individuals whose health is affected by scientific breakthroughs won't have the time or resources to be part of this process. The current paradigm reserves the asking of scientific questions for professional scientists. As a direct result, institutional agendas can often overpower patient goals. We want to equip any person with the tools to create their own studies. We want them to be able to explore the scientific issues that they find most interesting and to be most relevant to them and their families. With their help, we can unleash the thinking power of millions of people who currently don't have the resources to pursue scientific study or investigation. Ubiome is changing who benefits from scientific research. We aim to increase dataset diversity by targeting underrepresented regions, socioeconomic statuses, and health conditions in order to bring them into sharper relief. Rapidly building a large dataset of increasingly diverse microbiome data will allow Ubiome and our research partners to have a significant social and scientific impact going forward. We believe that performing large-scale studies in partnership with researchers and disease-focused foundations will have disproportionate benefit on the health of both our participants and the people affected by any number of serious health conditions worldwide. What we provide for our users. We provide each of our users with a kit that allows them to sample up to 5 sites on their bodies. The sample process is simple and non-intrusive. For a gut sample, we simply need a swab of your toilet paper. For a skin sample, we simply ask you to swab the crease behind your ear. From there, participants return their samples to our state-of-the-art San Francisco lab for sequencing. Microbial DNA is extracted in a clean room by a liquid handling robot. Sample integrity is ensured through 16S PCR sequencing using Human Microbiome Project 16S protocols, with strict engineering controls and both positive and negative microbial controls. Sequencing is performed on the Illumina HiSeq platform. Bioinformatics and downstream phylogenetic analysis of the raw DNA reads are conducted using a secure, high-performance SunGrid engine computing cluster on Amazon Web Services. So, what does that mean? It means that within 6 weeks, a turnaround time we plan to at least have within the coming months, we can provide our participants with a catalogue of their own microbes and access to our database, which explains what is known about each type of microbe. Let's take a moment to look at the Ubiome portal. When participants return their samples to us, we include a detailed survey that includes questions on demographics, health condition, diet, and lifestyle. Our interactive web portal allows participants to make comparisons between groups, as well as compare their results with other de-identified participants who have taken the Ubiome test. They can track the results of interventions, probiotic usage, diet and antibiotic treatments on their microbiome over time, so they can help keep their microbiome healthy. We empower them with the knowledge of their microbiome, the genome they can change. When looking back over Ubiome's history, it's important to note that there were a number of key developments in the study of the microbiome that inspired us to examine the steps we could take in this field. When the US government originally set out to map the human microbiome, it was at a cost of $173 million. This money only allowed them to sequence the microbiome of 250 participants. Lowered sequencing costs and our proprietary technology allows us to sequence the microbiome of our participants for a fraction of that cost. There are still great strides to be made in this field of study, however. Continuing to increase the population size of this research study allows us to explore new ideas and continue to drive research in this field. That's the story of how the tiny microbes that power your body went on to power a new branch of research and development, as well as a new way of thinking about how we approach scientific research as a whole. $73 million. This money only allowed them to sequence the microbiome of 250 participants. Lowered sequencing costs and our proprietary technology allows us to sequence the microbiome of our participants for a fraction of that cost. There are still great strides to be made in this field of study, however. Continuing to increase the population size of this research study allows us to explore new ideas and continue to drive research in this field. That's the story of how the tiny microbes that power your body went on to power a new branch of research and development, as well as a new way of thinking about how we approach scientific research as a whole.
Alors vous aurez compris bien sûr que lorsque vous regardez ce projet, c'est évidemment d'une part un projet d'entrepreneuriat, un projet d'innovation, mais il ne s'agit pas de dire que vous allez devenir des pros des biotechnologies, en tout cas pas de la partie bio des biotechnologies, mais du coup vous voyez bien que évidemment il y a une plateforme Internet pour consulter les résultats, qu'on imagine un back-office avec du coup de la computation des données, etc., de façon à vous positionner dans les statistiques des personnes, etc. Et c'est aussi donc, une fois de plus, l'occasion de rappeler que aujourd'hui, je trouve que quand on est informaticien, on a absolument tout qui s'ouvre devant soi, puisque du coup, on peut travailler vraiment dans n'importe quel domaine. Et du coup, c'est l'occasion un petit peu de rappeler à ceux d'entre vous qui sont venus à l'informatique par passion de l'informatique, qu'il est important de s'ouvrir au monde et que je pense particulièrement à ceux d'entre vous qui vont commencer un grand projet. Il ne s'agit pas forcément de choisir un sujet qui va être de l'informatique pour les informaticiens, mais potentiellement, donc du coup, justement, de profiter de l'occasion d'apporter votre compétence en informatique, votre capacité à gérer des données, des big data, des interfaces web, etc., pour des sujets, des finalités qui vont justement s'ouvrir à d'autres thématiques et, par exemple, s'ouvrir aux autres humains. Puisque, bon, encore une fois, souvent, quand on est geek, on parle mieux à son clavier qu'aux autres. Bon, Alexandre, je te passe le micro du coup.
Alors, vous avez des questions? Do you have any question for Kathryn Williams? Alors, j'en ai préparé parce que je me suis dit que ça va être compliqué. Si vous avez des questions que vous n'osez pas les poser en anglais parce que vous êtes timide ou parce que vous trichez au TOEIC et qu'en fait vous ne parlez pas anglais. Oui, parce que aussi il n'y a pas de partie où il parle. Vous pouvez la poser en français et on traduira. Voilà. Donc on va se connecter à...
On peut dire bonjour et on peut dire merci.
Avec, oui, voilà. Oui. Tu veux dire bonjour aussi? Parce qu'elle ne te connaît pas, toi.
Non, mais je croyais qu'elle était déjà online.
Ah oui, non. Hein? Okay. Hello, Kathryn.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. You are now in live with our students and other people in this room. First, we want to thank you to be with us very early in the morning or late in the night for you in San Francisco. I have a first question for you. Ubiome is known as a citizen scientist company.
Yes.
Yes. Do you explain what that means?
Of course. I think actually I was talking to someone about this recently. One of the metaphors that we hear around the office a lot is that when Jessica Richmond was originally thinking about the idea of a citizen science company, to her it was something akin to the idea that children would be told that they weren't allowed to play or play sports until they were grown up and had experience and had practiced and were considered professionals. But the idea that people couldn't embrace the idea of science and ask their own science questions and use that thinking power of lots of people to address ideas in new ways. It seemed almost preposterous to her, which is why she started Ubiome. Does that help?
Okay, is Ubiome is profitable now?
I'm so sorry we broke up a little.
Okay, is Ubiome is profitable now?
Yes, we've had a lot of interest. We've seen continuous growth quarter after quarter since we started. There's been a lot of interest in what we're doing, and we're thrilled by that, not just because obviously any company wants to be profitable and wants to be seen to make an impact financially, but because it shows that there are a lot of people in the world that this means something to them, that they can be involved, that they can participate, that they can learn. So it's gratifying on more than one level.
Can you tell us how is difficult to create a company or not in United States and in California? Is it difficult to create a company? Is it difficult to find an investor, to find customer? Are you some help from university world or school world in United States? I think I know that Ubiome was you begin the incubator of University of California, San Francisco. That's
in QB3, yes, we were. To answer your first question, I think I often consider how lucky we are that we're in the San Francisco Bay Area. It started off as a hive of people who were interested in pursuing ventures that they just had never thought to encounter before. So when you're here, you're automatically exposed to a lot of new people and new ideas that perhaps you wouldn't have had the opportunity to. We were very fortunate. QB3 were wonderful to us. We also mentioned on our blog recently that Y Combinator, who we're involved with, we're looking for more companies. But there's a lot of opportunities to join incubators, to join groups. Even at conferences, you'll be surprised how many people that have a loosely overlapping interest in what you're doing will find ways and want to find ways for their technology to support your product and vice versa.
Okay, thank you. I late again few seconds. We have a question in the room. I'll bring you the microphone.
Hello, Kathryn.
Good morning.
Can you hear me properly?
I can just hear you. I apologize if I can't make out anything you're saying.
That's okay. I was just wondering how important is it in the Bay Area to be cutting edge if you want to succeed as a startup?
To be attached?
No, cutting edge, like...
Oh, cutting edge.
Yeah, totally.
So that's a really interesting question, actually. I think it's not for us, and not for any startups that we've encountered. It's not about being cutting edge, or it's not being on the forefront of technology. That's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. If you are ahead of the curve, wonderful, run with that. But what you really want is to be thinking about often old ideas in new ways. The idea of, science as a pursuit and as an idea that people enter into these things to examine scientific questions is a very old one. People have obviously been doing it for centuries, but this was our new way of doing that. And I find that a lot with the companies I meet with, that it's something that they already recognize is important to people, and they either want to make it more accessible, more interesting, or they have a new slant on it they think could bring more information to people about it.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Another question in the room? No? Yes, Kathryn, let me to introduce you. Samir is managing director of ETNA, and maybe you have a question.
Hello. Thank you again for being there with us. Actually, sometimes I call myself Dean of Study because I think it's the right word maybe in USA. Just before the Q&A, I was remembering my students because actually they are, of course, computer scientists. And at first, if they start such a career, such a study, that's because they are geeks. And I did remember, I did remind to them that actually you can't be a computer scientist for just dealing with computer. you have to, of course, do those things for a purpose. And that was really interesting to hear you about something about healthcare, because of course it's about humans, because geeks often talk better with computer than with human. Maybe as a question, I would think about maybe a question about the gap between the geeks and your topics. Maybe, I don't know, you can talk about that kind of team of computer scientists, maybe that kind of the amounts of data that you collect, that you compute?
So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking about teams of people working together, people perhaps with a tech background and people not with a tech background. That seems to be your question. So to answer, this is not my first startup. I worked with another startup as their director of operations for 2 years. And I think while a lot of companies over here and a lot of new platforms thrive because they have people who are engineers, people who can build on things in a way that gets the information out there to other people, the most successful teams and combinations I've seen are people who are both technologically inclined and who are people inclined, and that balance is really what makes for a great team for us. So in terms of our team, for example, obviously different people at the company have different roles, and as long as you have good communication within a company and shared goals, there's a lot you can accomplish within that. But I think I've seen companies with really excellent ideas and a lot of technological background. And because they couldn't think how to translate that into like a people issue or something that would matter to their customers, their users, those companies were perhaps slightly less successful or floundered where they could have thrived a little more easily.
Okay, thank you. And actually, how many IT people, computer scientists do you have in your company?
That's an interesting question because we just hired some more, so I would have to do the math. In total, in the last 3 or 4 months, we've gone from a team of 5 people to a team of 30 people. We're expanding really rapidly. So there are different tech teams in terms of what we do. There's the lab tech team. The lab tech team are very focused on the science of the samples, getting the best data from the samples. There is the IT sort of tech team, the development team. They're the people who look at the data and translate it into a way that's good for user experience. Then there's the tech team that's like involved in our website, in our design, in our portal, in the development of the portal. So there are different teams there working on each of those, and obviously there's overlap. You'll find there's a lot of meetings with those people working together.
Okay, so at least we can say a lot.
Yes.
And maybe there is some question in some minds. Is there any kind of open position in the IT service in your company?
We are always hiring. So if anyone is interested in working with us, you can contact our support team. It's probably the easiest way. They filter a lot of our applications at the moment. So support@ubiome.com. Send us your resumes. We always love meeting new people, meeting new talent. So if you're interested, get in touch. Why not try?
And there will be the Frenchies. Okay. There is another question in here.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here. I have actually 2 questions. The first one concerns your data. You mentioned your wish to have common citizens participating in science. Are your data open? Like, can anyone who previously participated in the study have access to every data collected by Ubiome?
No, our data is close to us, and we don't give other people access to our database. That's really a privacy and security issue. Actually, let me qualify that statement. In terms of if someone came to us and said, I am a person with that's looking to investigate a particular condition, or can I have access to 200 users' data? In that sense, it's a closed group. However, when people do join as a participants with us, what they can do is give access for their de-identified data to be available to other users. So if you, when you're answering questions on our survey, say that you are a vegetarian or a healthy omnivore or you're a smoker, and you agree for that de-identified data to be given out to our participants, if someone who is a smoker wants to compare their data to other smokers in the set, in that sense, they do have access to other users' data, but it is always de-identified and anonymized, and that's important to us.
All right, so to rebound, I saw on your website you were associated with various universities and you had a technical board. Are these people able to analyze your data? Are microbiologists able to use the data you collected for their studies?
So we have different arrangements with different studies that work with us. Some of them want us to analyze the data, some want to analyze data that has come to them. So for example, we had a study of 200 participants in Australia, and they collected the samples, they distributed the kits, and when they did so, we asked them to sign a user agreement that said that as participants of that study, participants realized that their data would be released to the people who were running that study. So that was prearranged ahead of time. So it is possible to set that up in terms of studies, but there are steps and paperwork that needs to be taken for us to arrange that. By and large, any individual users, their data just comes to us.
Right, and lastly, in 2013 you had an Indiegogo campaign, and
Yes.
A few months ago you had a seed round and an angel round before. So why the angel round and the seed round? Well, at least that's what mentioned on Angel List, so I don't know if that's accurate.
I'm so sorry, I missed the last half of that
Right.
entirely.
You had an Indiegogo campaign in 2013, and in August you had a seed A round with Anderson Horowitz, and shortly before you had an angel round. Or are the info inaccurate?
So in terms of the different rounds of funding, was your question
Yes.
why we have those?
And
So in
so
the initial
shortly, yeah.
round of Indiegogo funding, we raised far more than we had ever hoped. It was wonderful. We had set out to raise $100,000, and we raised over $350,000, which was fantastic for us. We had a group of keen participants, and it showed that there were people other than us who really wanted to explore this field. Once you have that kind of like interest and you have a product, of course, the next thing that you always want to do is take it to the next level. You want to look at expanding your office space. You want to move out of our initial lab space was a very small lab space at UCSF. You want to give space for growth. You want to hire the best talent. And so inevitably you do move on to the next round of funding. That is not to say you immediately spend $350,000 in your first day. It's that buys you the room to explore new ideas and to think about what your company can accomplish.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
I have a question, Kathryn. Is it possible with the microbiome to make a diagnostic? Diagnostic is a good word in English. Yes.
I understand.
Diagnostic of maybe a bad way of life, or is it possible to make more diagnostic, medical diagnostic?
So the way that we are at the moment is we're a research study. So the idea is we want to gather as much data as we can, and we want to investigate the ideas that can be a diagnostic tool or that it might be used in studies. We are not there at the moment. There's a lot of research that goes into that, and there's a lot of work with the FDA that goes with that as well. What we're hearing anecdotally from our users is that they are setting out to change their microbiome or to investigate an effect something might have on their microbiome. And we get really interesting in anecdotal evidence of things that may happen, but we're nowhere near saying that that's an absolute fact or a certainty. It's just genuinely lovely feedback for us to get, that people are learning more about what we're doing.
And what is the final goal of Ubiome? Is it to better health for your customer or for everybody, or are you included in the transhumanist stream and do you want to increase the life expectancy of human people?
I mean, who doesn't want to increase the life expectancy of everyone that they create a product for? I think there are a couple of goals that we had in mind when we started this. One was to improve education. There's a lot of science, technology, engineering, medicine numbers, and the interest in that in the States dipped in the last sort of 10, 15 years. We think that there's a lack of education and awareness, and we wanted to bring that to people on one hand. On the other hand, we also wanted to bring awareness of the microbiome itself. So it was an educational effort as much as a medical effort. And I think lastly, what was important for us is that a lot of studies that are run at the moment, and again, Jessica has spoken in this in more detail at her TED Talks. If anyone is ever curious to look those up, do go check them out. They're available online. But the idea is that a lot of studies that are at the run at the moment are targeted towards westernized, educated, often men. There's a specific demographic that tend to get targeted in studies, and there are underrepresented groups across the world. And so by opening this up as a global endeavor, we will be able to get participants that perhaps otherwise would not have been included in those kinds of studies. So the idea was we can increase the population data set and help get more information to researchers in that way.
Thank you. Tu as une question? Yes. There is another question? Yes. Where is the microphone for the student? Yes. Thank you, Emma, for run. Run, Emma, run.
Hi. Sorry for my English. I just have a quick question. Is there any way to try your selection without sending some samples, just to see how the data is represented on the website?
If you'd like to see, in terms of what our customers see without actually sending samples to us, if you contact our support team, we arrange those accounts individually. But we could set you up with a preview account, so you can take a look at the experience for our users and our participants. That would probably be the best way to arrange that.
So I just have to contact you, and then you can create a preview account for me.
The address is support@ubiome.com. I will email it to Alexander at the end so that he can distribute it to you. But yes, we can arrange that individually, just that you would see the interface.
But actually, of course, this is going to be just a preview, because without data, you can't see yourself in the data set, of course.
Yeah, but you can create some fake ones.
You can what?
You can still create some fake data.
Oh yeah, but that's not maybe
That's why it's a preview.
The purpose. Okay. Any other question?
Okay, thanks.
Tiens, vas-y, passe.
Hello. First, I apologize for my accent. I saw on your website that the samples are stored indefinitely, and I'm wondering why, since the data are stored in the website, why would you store the sample?
We have had cases where participants have asked us to come back and resample their data. Not because there was something wrong with their data, but perhaps they had their data and they wanted to revisit it at a different point in their lives. So we keep samples indefinitely for as long as our users ask us to. Similarly, we have had users who, once they had their data and read their data, they asked us to destroy their samples, and we do that without question. If our users would like us to keep those samples, of course we will. It's part of the service that we offer. And if they would like us to no longer keep those, we do not. They have absolute control over their samples at all times.
And my second question would be more personal. Since your company is, like, I don't know if you saw the movie Galaga, but it's you're close to the eugenics, and I would like to know your opinion about that. Since you just say that you will not open your data, but what can it can change in the future? So what is your opinion about the eugenics in general?
I would very happily give you my opinion on anything if I could make out what you had said, and that's nothing to do with your accent. I think as the microphone travels across the room, I lose the ability to hear.
I will try to talk more clearly. I was wondering about your opinion on the eugenics.
In what sense, or in relation to what?
Since your data can be used, even if you don't open it, in the future it can happen. So I was wondering about that.
I've never been asked that question before. That's interesting. I think what I might like is to think about that and either return to it at the end or think about it and get a response to you later.
Actually, the point was maybe the bad way of using those data, and actually the students refer to the movie, the science fiction movie Gattaca. And
now I understand your question. I'm so sorry. So this all makes a lot more sense. In terms of, we do get people who reach out to us to ask about use of their data. And because the language on that, we chose it so carefully, not because we had concerns or were trying to be evasive about what we were doing, but because we wanted to be very clear with people how we handle their data, what they could learn from their data. I think people in this country have a lot of concerns about health insurance companies using their data, employers using their data, or what they could learn from those samples going forward. So not to look like I'm evading the question twice, but for that, we do have a section on it on our frequently asked questions on our website, and I would advise you to go there and read that because it best explains what was discussed with our IRB in the very early stages of the founding of the company.
And actually, maybe we can add that in life we may be optimistic. Of course, we have to think about bad way of bad usage of things, but maybe we can think about the good ones at first. I don't know if you hear me because the microphone wasn't actually working. Did you hear me? Anyway, is there any other question? Okay, there is one here.
Hello. Thank you for your time. So, you were saying that your product, which seems a great product, is profitable. And my question is, what's next for your company? Where do you want to go? And do you want to diversify? Or do you just want to focus on strengthening your product?
If I understood your question, it's now that we are profitable, what is next for Ubiome? In answer to that, there are a number of avenues that we are keen to explore. We have very different kinds of users. We have our individual participants. What we plan to do over the coming years is to invest more in their experience so that the individual user is getting early access to studies that's coming out of our research, so they're getting early access to information and studies that even doesn't come from our research. We want our users to be the most informed people in any area that interests them. In the other branch of that is the study side of things. That's access for researchers to bigger data sets. That's access for scientists to more technology and more information about that technology. So I think we've really laid some incredible foundations over the past year, and what we really want to do is develop that, take it further, and make sure that there's just a better understanding of the microbiome and just what we can achieve by understanding it. If that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question. Have you some project for international development in Asia, in Europe, maybe in France?
Have we a project for you? Well, if all of you would like to take kits and arrange a study, we do have groups of people that take a lot of, it's not just people who come to us with ideas for studies because they have a health condition. Some of them look for consistencies between groups of people who spend a lot of time together, people who travel together. So if what you're suggesting is that we arrange a study in association with you, great, let's do it.
No, it was not the sense of the question. I only want to know if you want to develop your company in other countries than the USA, in Europe, in Asia. Is it pertinent to think that? Or you want to stay in the United States only?
Oh, I see. We are staying in the United States because that is where our founders are. That's where our team is. In terms of expanding to other countries, I know that anything is possible in the next 5-10 years, but we are staying in the States for now.
Okay, so actually, I note that you are open to work with us on some projects. That's really interesting because actually, you know that today we are opening an event about innovation and entrepreneurship, and actually all those students are, for some of them, in the last year of the curriculum, but some others are actually in the fourth year, and they have to work for 2 years on a project, an innovative one, and actually some of them may not have an ID for now because they are supposed to find IDs for the end of the week. So maybe those of you without IDs, you may talk with Kathryn about what we can do together.
Absolutely, get in touch.
I have a personal question for you. You studied in Ireland and England. What's your professional course before to work for Ubiome?
I'm so sorry, you moved to the back of the room and the microphone breaks up instantly.
Okay, I want to know what is your professional and personal course before Ubiome. I know that you studied in Ireland and in England, but after.
Understood. So, as you'll find with a lot of people who work in startups in the Bay Area, my background isn't actually typical to where I ended up. When I studied as an undergrad and even as a postgrad, I was studying film production, and it was a very practical degree. It was looking at budgeting, at hiring crews, at bringing teams of people together. And when I moved to the Bay Area, I discovered pretty quickly that assembling a team of people on a tight budget to a schedule is pretty much startup life as much as it is film production life. So I ended up segueing from film production into operations. So I've been working in operations for startups for 4 years now, basically helping build them from the ground up. I usually move in and start with small companies. The last company I worked with, I was the 12th person to join, and I built the team out to a team of 350 people across the US. Which is why I'm keen to drive home the idea that when you are in an area like the Bay Area, or when you're meeting people at conferences like this, it's often the person you will least expect to have the skill set that you need. So I would say judge on skill set and personality match for people that you will work with in the future as much as background and experience.
Thank you. Samir, maybe a question? There is a question in the room? No.
Actually, if there is no other question, and as I've already talked about the idea of a partnership, I hope that those students of ours, that don't have an ID for now, don't have the challenge for the next 2 years, hear me. Maybe I will repeat in French after that. Anyway, I may say thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And actually, I hope that we'll get in touch again for maybe the next things about Ubiome, about ETNA, etc. Okay?
That sounds wonderful. Thank you for bearing with me through not being able to hear every question. And it was lovely to speak with you guys.
Thank you.
Have a lovely rest of the day.
Ok, bon, est-ce que ça marche? Non? Ça marche pas trop? Ça marche pas très fort en tout cas.
C'est fini là, cette conférence.
Alexandre Deleuze, passe-moi le micro qui marche fort et qui parle fort.
Voilà.
Bon, alors, j'espère que ça vous a plu. Oui, c'est saturé, mais au moins comme ça vous entendez fort. Et comme ça vous arrêtez de parler. Bon, j'espère que ça vous a plu cette première conférence. En tout cas, moi je suis extrêmement content d'avoir ouvert ce premier Innov'camp ETNA avec une conférence d'une si grande qualité. Et encore une fois, cette facette qui ouvre l'informaticien, le geek qui est en vous à d'autres sujets, tout en restant quand même ce que vous êtes, me semble très intéressant. J'espère que l'anglais n'a pas été une barrière trop importante. J'aurais tendance à vous dire que c'est un problème au XXIe siècle, si ça a été une barrière pour vous. En tout cas, une parenthèse importante qui a été dite, histoire que tout le monde l'entende vraiment en français, c'est que vous voyez, typiquement, ce type d'entreprise, même si évidemment il y a ce sujet d'inquiétude, d'utilisation des données, avec toute la facette science-fiction, Gattaca, et je pense qu'on aurait pu en trouver d'autres, d'exemples de science-fiction où on s'inquiète d'eugénisme, de choses comme ça, de choses incroyables. On pourrait parler aussi de Transcendence aussi. Est-ce que c'est Brad Pitt, c'est ça? Non, c'est pas Brad Pitt. Enfin, le type dans Transcendence, est-ce que c'est bien d'aller vers ça ou pas, etc. En tout cas, même si ils ne veulent pas ouvrir leurs données n'importe comment, justement, pour ne pas faire peur aux gens qui participent, je pense qu'ils ont quand même une ouverture, une espèce de vision vertueuse de cette collaboration de données, puisqu'encore une fois, on a le droit aussi d'être optimiste dans la vie, à force de craindre, comme on dit, en plus, la peur n'évite pas le danger, donc il ne faut pas forcément rester catatonique à ne rien faire. Toujours est-il que donc du coup, elle est ouverte à des collaborations avec des groupes d'élèves, et notamment, je pense encore une fois aux ETNA.io qui n'auraient pas, enfin cette fois-ci en français dans le texte, qui n'auraient pas encore d'idées pour samedi. Et bien donc du coup, apparemment, elle est ouverte à des idées de collaboration. Voilà. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres remarques? Il y a votre camarade avec sa question sur Gattaca. Je sens qu'il a envie de... Alors, je répète la question pour s'assurer que tout le monde l'ait bien entendu. Il commentait qu'a priori, selon lui, en France, ce type d'entreprise ne pourrait pas exister. Bon, je ne suis pas expert, donc je ne me prononcerai pas là-dessus. En plus, après, derrière, je dirais que en matière de législation, il y a des choses qui sont faisables, du style, si les personnes sont d'accord, peut-être qu'il y a moyen, en leur faisant signer des documents suffisamment bien ficelés, avec suffisamment de dépenses en frais d'avocat, malheureusement, parce que c'est pas très constructif. Et ben du coup, ça rendrait peut-être la chose possible. Après, encore une fois, bon, il faut essayer d'être optimiste dans la vie, hein, et mine de rien, en anonymisant les données, ça préserve pas mal de choses. Elle a fait une parenthèse typiquement aux États-Unis. Vous savez que l'assurance santé est un sujet très stressé, puisque bien sûr en France, nous on a l'habitude d'avoir au moins une sécurité sociale qui est en standard. Et puis après, derrière, seulement l'ajout des mutuelles, etc. Là-bas, effectivement, ils sont, dès le début, dès le premier dollar, à devoir utiliser, bien sûr, leur compagnie d'assurance. C'est sûr que si la compagnie d'assurance sait que vous êtes malade, elle va sûrement vous assurer beaucoup moins bien. Sûrement pas, d'ailleurs, ou en tout cas très cher. Et donc, du coup, ça pourrait conduire des gens à ne pas pouvoir être assurés, etc. Donc, bon, après, si c'est proprement et correctement anonymisé, on peut quand même être optimiste. Et améliorer quand même la vie des gens. D'autres remarques? En plus, c'est une remarque de quand même un ancien doctorant en génétique, je crois, c'est ça? De la reproduction. Bon.
Oui, en fait, je voulais juste intervenir justement sur le sujet de Gattaca. Je voulais juste que, en fait, vous faites une différence entre la génétique du corps humain et la génétique de toutes les bactéries qui le supportent. Il faut savoir, c'est que là, en fait, ils font des recherches sur les bactéries. Donc, en fait, ils font un pool de toutes les bactéries qu'on comporte. Et en fait, ils font une carte génétique de l'ensemble des bactéries. C'est même pas un seul individu, une seule bactérie, un seul type de bactérie. C'est toutes les bactéries qui vont être, par exemple, dans le tube digestif. Et en aucun cas, en fait, ils mettent la génétique de vos cellules. Donc, en fait, c'est un peu, les données, leur criticité, si on peut dire ça. C'est un peu comme si en fait ils récoltaient la pression artérielle ou des données autres de votre corps. C'est pas la génétique, c'est pas votre empreinte génétique, il y a rien de tout ça, quoi. Voilà, c'était juste pour faire évoluer, alimenter le débat sur le sujet de Gattaca, quoi.
Il faut savoir que c'est assez pertinent parce que il y a des recherches et même des thérapies qui sont basées là-dessus, sur la transplantation de matière fécale de quelqu'un de sain vers quelqu'un qui a des maladies, justement pour Oui, c'est pas très ragoûtant, mais ils les avalent pas, hein, ils les injectent directement. Ce qui permet de reconstituer ou de développer un macrobiome de quelqu'un
C'est sale quand
et
même.
donc de guérir. Ouais, mais c'est sale, mais si ça peut guérir. Et,
non mais je plaisante, mais du coup on pourrait dire plutôt un échantillon de flore, enfin de bactéries de flore, et là tout de suite c'est beaucoup moins scato. Sauf que du coup, en tout cas, on se rend compte qu'on peut se soigner avec des choses qui sont pas forcément bizarres, qui sont juste des choses naturelles entre guillemets. D'ailleurs, on trouvera peut-être des tribus d'Indiens aborigènes qui faisaient ça naturellement régulièrement. Hein. Délire le type le plus en meilleure santé du groupe, et puis ensuite tout le monde, du coup, bref.
Ça, c'est sale, ça.
C'est ça.
Et d'ailleurs, il y a une chose amusante à propos de Ubiome, c'est que quand vous avez un animal domestique, au bout d'un certain temps, il a la même flore intestinale que vous. Voilà.
Ah, tous ceux qui ont un animal domestique, là, du coup, ils se sentent bizarres, là. Ok, bon, encore une fois, je trouve que c'est une belle ouverture, en tout cas, à d'autres sujets. On pourrait sûrement en parler longtemps. On pourrait théoriser aussi sur la science-fiction et sur le fait que dans Gattaca, justement, il contourne le problème. Puisque du coup, je ne vais pas spoiler pour ceux qui ne l'ont pas vu, mais bon, bref, il contourne le problème. Voilà. On va passer donc du coup à la conférence suivante.